This is episode 228 of Teacher Approved.
You're listening to Teacher Approved, the podcast helping educators elevate what matters and simplify the rest. I'm Heidi.
And I'm Emily. We're the creators behind Second Story Window, where we give research-based and teacher-approved strategies that make teaching less stressful and more effective. You can check out the show notes and resources from each episode at secondstorywindow.net.
We're so glad you're tuning in today. Let's get to the show.
Hey there, thanks for joining us today. In today's episode, we are sharing 6 strategies for getting your classroom back on track after you've had a substitute teacher. Plus, we have a teacher-approved tip for setting your students up for success on future sub days.
But let's start with a try it tomorrow, where we share a quick win that you can try in your classroom right away. Emily, what's our suggestion this week?
This week, try referring to substitute teachers as guest teachers when you talk with your students. This simple language shift helps drive home the point that this person should be respected the same way you are respected. Instead of saying, we'll have a sub tomorrow, try, we'll have a guest teacher visiting our classroom tomorrow.
I love this. It sets a completely different tone. When we call someone a guest teacher, it implies that they are someone special that we are welcoming into our space, not just a placeholder until the real teacher gets back.
If you like this idea or anything else we share here on the podcast, we would love it if you would take a moment and give us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app. So here we are in early October, and if you haven't been out sick yet this year, you probably will be soon.
And even if you haven't had to call in a substitute for a training or a meeting so far, there's likely one on your calendar in the near future.
Ugh. Being away from school, it's a huge stress from start to finish because first, there's the scramble to get sub plans ready when you're already feeling awful or rushing to prepare for a last-minute meeting. Then there's the worry about how things are going while you're away. And finally, there's walking back into your classroom wondering what you're going to find.
Whether you have been out for half a day or for 2 weeks, coming back is always a heavy moment. Standing outside your door, it's like Schrodinger's classroom. In that moment, there's still a chance that everything went great. The sub taught all your material. The children were golden angels, and inside you will find everything neat and tidy and waiting for your return.
But there's also the chance that it did not go great. The sub taught nothing. The children were out of control, and your classroom now qualifies for FEMA emergency response funds. But until you unlock that door, you don't know how it all played out.
No, I can't look. We should just hang out in the hallway for a while.
Sorry, we're going to have to go in there and see what happened.
No. Oh, this is such a cruel way to start the day. I remember coming back from a training once to find a 3-page handwritten note chronicling everything that had gone wrong. This was from a retired teacher who had subbed over 100 days that year, and she said my class was the hardest she had ever encountered.
Wow, that is just not the award you're looking to win as a teacher.
No, definitely not. And I saved that note for posterity. I mean, on the one hand, it was validating because those kids were tough. And I did warn her up front that they were kind of like a pack of puppies. So she had a little heads up. But on the other hand, what do you do with that? How do you even begin to get back on track?
Oh, it's so rough. One time I came back to find that the sub hadn't used any of the plans I'd prepared, but had gone through all of my cupboards and gotten out random supplies for the kids. They played with math games that I was saving for later in the year. No surprise, it was he, dug out my treasure box and gave everyone a prize. He helped himself to the candy that was in that week's estimation jar, and my room was a complete disaster.
Oh, that's so frustrating because there's nothing you can do. After you have put all of that time and energy into writing well thought out plans and preparing all of those materials only to have it just all be ignored.
Ugh. And of course, we have also had amazing subs over the years, the ones that the kids can't wait to tell you about and who left everything better than they found it.
Yes, that's so true. Some subs are just magic. It's like having Mary Poppins fill in for the day. But whether you return to find that everything is practically perfect or a perfect nightmare, there is still that moment when you walk back in and think, okay, how do I get my classroom feeling like my classroom again?
And that's exactly what we're talking about today, how to smoothly get everyone back on track, whether you're dealing with the aftermath of chaos or just the general disruption that comes with having someone else in your space.
If you remember our favorite analogy of student engagement, our goal is to keep the forces of structure and novelty in balance. If you have too much structure, the kids are bored and causing problems. If you have too much novelty, the kids are overwhelmed and causing problems. Having a sub is a guarantee of increased novelty. Even now that you're back, they are still coming down from that high energy.
That's why they need you to step in to help them regulate. And we do that by leaning into structure. It gives your students space to shift their energy from unregulated excitement to focused engagement. So today we've got 6 strategies to help you do just that.
And the good news is that most of these strategies really don't require a lot of extra work. It's more about a framework for how to be intentional with the time and the energy that you would already be spending.
Right? Because there's a very real chance you might still be recovering from whatever kept you out in the first place. The last thing you need is a complicated plan that requires you to overhaul your whole system while you're recovering from a stomach bug. So let's dive into our 6 simple strategies for resetting your classroom after you've been out.
The first thing, and this is vital because it makes everything else easier, it's to get to school early if you possibly can. And I know I hate the mornings, and I know that this is the last thing you want to do, especially if you're still not feeling great. But even just 15 or 20 minutes can make such a difference in how the day unfolds.
And it is so unfair that you have to jump right back into the thick of things the second you walk in the door, but that is teacher life, unfortunately. So let's do what we can to make this a smooth transition, and you can start that by taking a second to pause.
That pause is important. As you walk into your classroom the first morning back, take a moment to look around before you do anything else. Sometimes the state of your classroom tells you more than any note ever could. Are the desks where you left them? Is your board still organized the way you like? Are there mysterious art projects hanging up that you definitely did not assign?
Like when I found the treasure box I'd left in the back of the closet lying open on the counter. The visual scan told me way more than any note could have.
He probably didn't leave much of a note anyway. It doesn't seem like that type of stuff.
Yeah, no.
Arriving early also gives you a few minutes to check in with the teacher next door. They probably heard everything and they are just waiting to fill you in on what really happened.
Oh, gosh. You know they've got tons to tell you. And once you get that debrief, you can go over the subnote if they haven't emailed you already. Tidy any mess and get your materials ready for the day.
The goal is to get all of the prep work out of the way before the kids arrive. That way you're free to be present with them instead of scrambling around trying to figure out where everything is.
Once you've done the prep work for the day, take a couple minutes to create an atmosphere that says we're back to normal. And that is our second strategy for recovering your class after a sub, and that is to set a welcome tone.
I always tried to have something that felt like home, maybe familiar music playing or a welcome back message on the board. Just a signal that your classroom is your classroom again.
Plus, a calm atmosphere helps you feel ready too. Kids pick up on your energy immediately. And if you're frazzled and still figuring things out, they will notice and they will be frazzled too. But if you have time to say, hey, I'm glad to see you, I missed you, it sets a completely different tone.
It's that presence that makes all the difference. And this is why it's so important to get there early so that you're not stuck making copies as the kids arrive. When you can actually be there physically and emotionally, it helps the kids get back on track.
Think of it like bumpers on a bowling lane. Your calm, grounding presence on that first morning back is a gentle nudge to keep the energy of the day rolling in the right direction. Without it, you might end up with a gutter ball.
Which in a classroom means you'll have hyper kids. If you are not in the room as they arrive, they're going to be amped up wondering if you're going to be there, and if not, who is. That means you will have to spend a bunch of energy to keep that bowling ball rolling down the lane.
I wonder how far we can stretch this bowling metaphor.
But you don't think that was a strike?
It's really more of a home run, but let's not mix metaphors.
Well, anyway, that sets us up for our third strategy for recovering after a sub. Once you've taken a breath and the classroom is ready for a fresh start, the next priority is reconnection.
This step is so important. Don't just launch into math like nothing happened. When kids have had a day or even just half a day with a substitute, it's like the emotional tether between you and the class has stretched a little. Before you dive into math, facts, or reading groups, just take a few minutes to relax some of that tension.
This really doesn't have to be a big production. If you do morning meeting, this is the perfect time to just add in a moment of connection. If you don't do morning meeting, just gather everyone together for a few minutes.
A nice place to start is with gratitude. Thank everyone for welcoming the guest teacher and doing their best. It sets a positive tone right from the start.
And then you could do a quick temperature check, have everyone share one word for how they're feeling today, or keep it even quicker with a signal. Ask everyone to show a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a thumbs sideways, just to see where everyone's at emotionally.
You may even want to include a little "we're back together" moment. So maybe your class cheer or a favorite song that feels distinctly like your classroom.
This is also a great time for something playful, a silly movement song, a 2-minute dance break, or a read aloud of a funny picture book. This really can be quick, but the point is to send the message, I see you, we're back together, and we are a team again. Those few minutes do more for the day's learning than any frantic rush to get straight to the lesson plan could.
And bonus, while you're reconnecting, you can casually take the emotional temperature of the class. You'll notice who's still a little keyed up from yesterday, who needs a private check-in later, and who's ready to roll. It's a small investment of time that pays off with a smoother, calmer reset for everyone.
You might want to close out this reconnection time with our fourth strategy, which is to ask students to share their perspective of how things went with the sub.
Oh yeah, they have insights you won't get anywhere else.
And we don't want this time to feel like a punishment or a lecture, so try framing it as a chance to notice what went well and what could be smoother next time.
And you can totally keep this simple and short. Maybe during morning meeting, you ask a few open-ended questions like, what was something you enjoyed about yesterday? What helped the day go smoothly? What's one thing we could all do better when we have a guest teacher next time?
If you prefer a quieter start, try a quick written reflection. Give students a sticky note or a half sheet with prompts like 2 stars and a wish, which is 2 things that went well and 1 thing that could be better next time. Or, what would you want to tell our next guest teacher about our class? That gets them thinking about your classroom culture from an outsider perspective.
Sometimes kids surprise you with what they notice. They might point out things that worked really well that you hadn't thought of.
Plus, it gives them a voice in the process instead of just having things done to them.
Okay, so you've arrived early, you set a peaceful, welcoming tone, you set aside time for reconnection and invited students to reflect on how things went. Now it's time for our fifth strategy, and this is the moment you've been waiting for, getting back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Yes, remember how we want to lean into structure to reset the class? After reconnecting, the fastest way to help everyone feel secure again is to just get back to your normal routine.
Kids thrive on predictability, and having a guest teacher, no matter how wonderful they are, disrupts that. So the sooner you can return to your regular schedule, the better. Obviously, we want to schedule time to reconnect and reflect, but besides that necessary detour, do what you can to follow as normal a routine as possible.
If you find that things still feel a little shaky as you go through your regular routines, you can lightly touch on expectations. Hey, let's remember how we stand in line without talking, or who can show me our hand signal for the bathroom?
And we really do want this to feel light because you're not reteaching everything or lecturing. You're just gently reinforcing how your classroom works, reminding them that you have boundaries and you're going to keep them.
Yeah, that's the real key. If there are bigger issues, like if the sub noted problems with noise or transitions, invite the class to help problem solve. I heard transitions were tricky yesterday. What ideas do you have for making those smoother when we have a guest teacher?
Of course, if things went really, really poorly with the sub, you may want to spend some time today clearly reteaching your expectations, but you can save that for any worst case scenario situations. You don't have to do it every time.
Yeah, hopefully you never need to use it, but you know that you've got that tool handy if you need it. Those tell, try, tell, talk slides you set up for the start of the school year work just as well in October as they did in September, so get those out if they're needed. And you can go back to episode 75 if you need a refresher on the tell, try, tally, talk method.
Addressing things that didn't go well while you're out can be tricky, but it's important. And that's our sixth strategy for resetting your class. Thoughtfully handle behavior issues.
Yeah, this can feel so tricky, but remember, you don't have to launch into detective mode the minute the bell rings. Start by calmly reviewing any notes the sub left or any feedback you received. If there were issues, give yourself a moment to separate the facts from any strong emotions.
If you offered a reward for good behavior during your absence, follow through. If they earned it, celebrate. If not, talk about why and what they can do differently next time.
And during that discussion, it's important to keep the tone very matter of fact. Start with a reminder that expectations are the same no matter who is teaching. You aren't angry. You're just clarifying.
Yeah, so you might say something like, I heard that yesterday there were some challenges with following directions during science. Let's talk about how we can handle that better next time. Framing it as a shared problem to solve rather than a list of punishments helps students stay engaged instead of defensive.
And depending on what happened, you could add this discussion to your reconnection time. Ask, What worked well when the guest teacher was here? Where did we slip? Let students suggest solutions or ways to make the next sub day smoother.
The key is reframing it as a learning opportunity. Every time we have a sub, we get a little better at it. That mindset helps students own their role in creating a respectful, welcoming classroom for any sub, and it plants the seeds for an even smoother experience the next time you're out.
The goal here isn't to shame anyone, it's to rebuild trust and clarify expectations. End the conversation by restating the positive. I know we can handle it even better next time, and here is how we'll do it. Wrapping up with a forward-looking focus lets everyone reset and move on without lingering tension.
When kids help create the solutions, they're way more likely to follow through. Plus, it shifts from you were bad to how can we be successful?
Now, there will probably be some occasions when there have been specific incidents that you need to address. So handle those privately so that the conversation can stay respectful and constructive. Playing out the drama in front of the whole group just never ends well.
Yeah, and if things were really rough when you were gone, remind students that you can always take the fresh start approach. Today, we get to show what we're really about.
So, to recap, when you're coming back after having a guest teacher, get to school early if possible so that you can feel prepared and ready for the day to start.
Then set the tone for a welcoming reentry by tidying your space and being present to greet your students.
Take time to reconnect before jumping into academics and get your students' perspective on how things went with the guest teacher.
Get back to your regular routine as quickly as possible and address any behavior issues thoughtfully.
The nice thing is that these strategies aren't just about fixing problems. They're about strengthening your classroom community and helping students become more successful when you're not there, so that hopefully the next time you come back after an absence, you do find that everything was practically perfect while you were away.
A teacher's dream. We would love to hear about your substitute teacher stories, the good, the bad, and the you won't believe what I found when I got back stories. Come join the conversation in our Teacher Approved Facebook group. Now for our Teacher Approved Tip of the Week, where we share an actionable tip to help you elevate what matters and simplify the rest. This week's tip is to use your first substitute experience of the year as a foundation for preparing students for future guest teachers. So tell us more about it, Heidi.
Okay, this is a tip that will pay off every single time you need a sub again. Use your most recent experience of having a sub to start preparing your students for the next one. Once you have reconnected and reflected, take a few minutes to talk about what worked well and what could be even better the next time that you're out. Keep it positive and collaborative, something like, you did a great job getting your work done yesterday. What else should we definitely remember to do whenever we have a guest teacher? And what could we tweak so that the next guest teacher feels even more welcome? Make sure to capture those ideas. Maybe it's a chart that you could post or a digital doc you project. You could even have students write their responses that you gather to share with the class.
Some classes even create a when we have a guest teacher agreement that they all sign. Things like we will follow all classroom rules and we will be helpful and kind. Having it written down and signed makes it feel more important.
And once you've written down your expectations, here's the magic. Refer back to your list or your chart often, not just when you're planning to be absent. If you walk by another class that has a sub, pause and say, hey, remember our sub plan? How should you come to the carpet when I'm not here? Yep, quickly and quietly without touching anybody else.
Those quick reminders keep expectations fresh, and they normalize the idea that a smooth sub day is just part of your classroom culture, and you have confidence in their ability to represent your classroom well.
Even if you are lucky enough never to get sick, you're still going to have a sub day or two during the year. By preparing students now, it makes the whole experience less stressful for everyone, including you. That way, the next time you have to be out, whether it's a planned PD day or an unexpected sick day, your students already know exactly what to do.
And that means your guest teacher walks into a class that's calm, welcoming, and self-managing, and you come back to a room that doesn't feel like it's been through a tornado. Future you will thank present you for laying that groundwork now.
To wrap up the show, we're sharing what we're giving extra credit to this week. Emily, what gets your extra credit?
I'm giving extra credit to my old lady habit of my favorite show, which is CBS Sunday Morning.
I love CBS Sunday Morning.
I picked this up for my parents because this was always on Sundays at our house. And so I just started watching it myself. And it is just my favorite little button to the end of the week, start of the week, whichever you want to call Sundays to be. I like it because it is technically a news show. So you will get a little bit of news, but it's not like Meet the Press or something where you're just going to get like a fire hose to the face of all the news. Yes. We're already all getting that. This is more going to just hit the big stuff and might have like a story that dives into an aspect of the big stories. But otherwise, it really is just a collection of interesting stories. Like, yes. I love learning about like these interesting places in the world where they like do an interesting deep dive about or an occupation I've never heard of, or they have a lot of like human interest stories where there's some guy who always does this. I can't remember his name now. Steve something, where he's just like highlighting the story of like the cute kid who like made a stand to offer free hugs to people, you know, and he goes and interviews the kid. And oh gosh, it's so feel good. It just is calming. And I feel like it helps me stay informed. But also I love that it teaches me random things that I didn't know. Like I always like, I feel like a lot of the weird things I know about the world, I learned from CBS Sunday Morning.
Like Dutch canal jumping or random roadside attractions or an artist that you've never heard of or an artist you know a ton about, but here's a whole new look at their past history that you haven't thought about before. It's just always eye-opening.
Yeah, sometimes it'll be like a deep dive into like some historical person that you just never knew this whole thing about their background, or they'll often do like a celebrity interview as well, but it's not like the typical celebrity interview. It's usually a much more interesting personal conversation, which I appreciate too. So anyways, if you want a new old lady habit, start watching CBS Sunday Morning.
They should sponsor us. We love them so much.
Seriously. My kids all know the little trumpet sound. That just feels like
their blurb. Something like, until our trumpet sounds again or something.
Yep. What do you give me extra credit to, Heidi?
I'm giving extra credit to Joshua Radin's new album, One Day Home, which is just perfect fall chill vibes if you're in the mood for that. It's like peak Joshua Radin. If you were a fan back in like 2006, this is hitting all of those right points. But it also, there's a second version of the album that instead of guitar is piano and vocal. And I think I might almost like that better. It's kind of reminding me of like vintage Billy Joel stuff. Like, it's the exact same songs, just different arrangements. And either way, both a win.
I'm excited to check that out because Joshua Radin is quintessentially acoustic guitar. So
yes,
hearing it with piano, that sounds exciting.
It's very different.
I heard a Joshua Radin song on like a random commercial the other day. And I was like, whoa, this is weird. It always reminds me of how I think I was 22 when we went and saw that concert that he did. And I remember at the time thinking, I am too old for concerts. And I was 22.
We had to stand the whole time. We're like,
no, cut out for this life. As much as we love music, we are not cut out for standing in bars for concerts.
I know. I think at the time we were complaining, like, by the time, like, you had to get there an hour early. And then no wonder we like a CBS Sunday Morning.
I know. I think we've always been middle-aged, it turns out.
Or we're just not dumb. Like,
no, we know what we like.
Nobody wants to be standing around for 4 hours on a concrete floor.
No,
it's not fun.
Story.
Does not make the music any better.
Amen. But I will check out his new album, so I'm excited.
Much more enjoyable than standing around.
Amen.
That is it for today's episode. Whether you're dealing with your first sub day of the year or you're a seasoned pro at this, remember that every experience is a chance to strengthen your classroom community.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Teacher Approved. I'm Heidi.
And I'm Emily. Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow or subscribe in your podcast apps so that you never miss an episode.
You can connect with us and other teachers in the Teacher Approved Facebook group. We'll see you here next week. Bye for now.
Bye.